InvestorIdeas.com podcasts.
Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of InvestorIdeas.com podcast. Today's podcast is sponsored by Cannabis Swiss Corporation, trading on the OTC as CSUI, a fully licensed cannabis cultivation and distribution company in Switzerland for recreational tobacco products and medical CBD oils. The company's products are laboratory tested to ensure the end users have access to a standardized, safe, and consistent product. And Cannabis Swiss proprietary trademark mold standard is a quantitative microbiology method for analyzing yeast and mold counts in harvested cannabis plants. And the Cannabis Swiss proprietary trademark Cannamec is a method for quantifying and removing residual solvents during packaging and storage of CBD products. Cannabis Swiss Corporation currently sells via a distribution network of Swiss retailers and online shops under the retail brand Alpine Cannabis. In today's podcast, we're going to be looking at a few public and private company announcements from Pure Harvest Corporate Group Incorporated, trading on the OTC as PHCG, Neptune Wellness Solutions Incorporated, trading on the NASDAQ and the TSX as NEPT, Medical Marijuana Incorporated, trading on the OTC as MJNA, as well as Copper State Farms Management LLC. So first today, starting with Pure Harvest Group, who announced that its wholly owned subsidiary, Sofa King Medicinal Wellness Products LLC, has implemented solar storage and intelligent distribution technology at its dispensary located in Dumont, Colorado. Now, the solar installation project was completed through a partnership with Solar Cultivation Technologies Incorporated, a Denver-based solar company focused on bringing solar to the cannabis industry in an effort to minimize the industry's carbon footprint. SKM's dispensary is believed to be the first solar-powered dispensary in the state of Colorado and is the first dispensary in Colorado to implement SCT's Infinite Light system. Now, the use of solar storage will allow SKM's dispensary operations to consume less energy from the grid and assist SKM in reducing the carbon produced in its operations. In addition to the solar installation of SKM's dispensary location, SKM and SCT are in the planning stages of implementing solar-powered agricultural lighting in SKM's cultivation facility to further reduce the carbon footprint in line with the PHCG's environmental stewardship goals. We're extremely excited to implement solar and battery storage at our retail facility and proud to advance our company's goal to be a carbon-neutral business, said Matthew Gregaric, the CEO of Pure Harvest Corporate Group. We believe the technology developed and implemented by Solar Cultivation Technologies has the potential to revolutionize our cannabis operations, and we can't wait to implement this technology in the cultivation and processing aspects of our business as well. We are very pleased to be doing business with Pure Harvest and admire their dedication to reducing the environmental impact of their operations, said Nick Brait, the CEO of Solar Cultivation Technologies. Our mission is to help cannabis operators minimize their carbon footprint, and Pure Harvest has shown a clear commitment to environmental stewardship and implementing renewable energy throughout their business. We're excited to continue working with Pure Harvest to build a carbon-neutral cannabis company right here in Colorado. Talked a lot about solar in the cannabis industry before. Seems to be one of those things that gets sort of mildly implemented here and there sporadically throughout the industry, but doesn't seem to garner any mass adoption. Again, it's been discussed. There's lots of different companies. We've discussed it with Single Point many a times. They have actually invested in a solar company as well. And there's a few other companies within the cannabis space that either have a direct partnership or some sort of joint partnership with a solar-based company, and they have implemented some of this technology. But the big difference has been most of your large-scale production facilities, most of the production in general for this industry still goes without any sort of renewable energy assistance. And in general, the carbon footprint of the cannabis industry is still quite comprehensive. So it is nice to see that there's definitely companies looking into this. But what you're seeing consistently is similar to this type of setup with Pure Harvest, in that they're using one facility and testing this out in a small scale and then slowly working at integrating this into their other facilities. That will take time, and again, you probably won't see a lot of these facilities from the Pure Harvest Group coming online with solar anytime soon, just because it has been very difficult to implement. But it is always nice to see when there are companies jumping into this area, but I don't think that you're going to see any sort of mass adoption of solar, unfortunately, probably for another year or two at least, just because, again, even as these companies are trying to focus somewhat on renewable energy, they do also have a lot of other focuses, and unfortunately, this has been put on the back burner for most of them. So again, I really wouldn't expect this to be an ongoing trend. You might see a few other small solar installations pop up over the next couple of years, But until one of the larger scale producers, or until you see one of the bigger companies with a massive footprint actually adopt solar throughout, or not necessarily solar, but some sort of renewable or energy saving platform throughout their entire network, that's when you're going to start to see this change for the industry, hopefully. Next, looking at Neptune Wellness Solutions, who announced the first of its product lines made in collaboration with legendary animal behavior expert and conservationist Dr. Jane Goodall under its Forest Remedies brand. Now, the Wonders of Africa Essential Oil Kit celebrates Dr. Goodall's remarkable passion and work, and the collection includes 4 enchanting essential oils that are all sourced from Africa and feature citronella, ginger, liang yang, and frankincense to promote balance, harmony, and vibrance. Now, inspired by her love of Africa and passion for protecting wildlife, and built with the world-recognized leader International Flavors and Fragrances, these exclusive lines of natural plant-based wellness products directly supports the legendary conservationist efforts to create a better world for all living things. With every purchase, 5% of the sale price is donated directly to Jane Goodall's Institute to support continued research, conservation, and education efforts. And this kit includes 4 essential oils, all sustainably sourced from countries in Africa, a continent with incredibly rich biodiversity that Dr. Goodall has long cared deeply about. So Neptune Wellness Solutions, launching more wellness products. I think it is pretty cool that they've partnered with Dr. Jane Goodall. Obviously, as far as wellness, health, and conservation, she's a name that has obviously a lot of clout within that space. I'm actually quite surprised that she would do a product partnership in collaboration with a wellness company, even if it's a cannabis-based wellness company. But it is kind of a cool surprise to see that. And they would be definitely interesting to check out. And I would expect that you'll probably see more along this line over the next coming years, as I would assume they wouldn't do this as a one-time opportunity with a name like Dr. Jane Goodall. But it is an interesting development for the company. I do think that a lot of the products they've been producing for wellness products over the last couple of years have been quite impressive, and they've built out a really good brand. Now starting to get names attached to it. Obviously, we've seen this with other cannabis and wellness companies. Canopy Growth has a big celebrity list behind them, and it has helped them a lot within the momentum of this industry. And in general, if you're still cannabis-based, Neptune Wellness is sort of on the fringe of that, being mostly a wellness and lifestyle brands company with not a lot of CBD or cannabis based products out on the market. But in general, they're still connected to this space. And it does limit the marketing abilities for a lot of these companies. So partnering with some sort of well-known celebrity endorsement, Dr. Jane Goodall, obviously a very different type of celebrity endorsement, but still a name that will bring people's attention to the products and to the overall brand, which is sort of the only marketing strategy a lot of these companies have available to them. So celebrity endorsement or something like this, I would expect to continue at the pace it already does sort of continue within this space, which is pretty consistent. You're always seeing companies trying to get some sort of partnership with a popular name, whether it's, like I said, in the medical or science community, or in the psychedelics community, in the cannabis culture community, or just general sports and celebrity sort of standards. So definitely interesting to check out, and I would be interested to see what the overall consumer feedback of those products will be over the next coming months once those are launched. Next, looking at Medical Marijuana Incorporated, who announced today that subsidiary Hemp Meds Brazil has had its best month ever in the company history in August of 2020. Since 2015, Hemp Meds Brazil has sold more than 80,000 units of CBD to Brazilian citizens, said Medical Marijuana Incorporated CEO Dr. Stuart Titus. And we're proud to be the recipients of the first permits to import CBD into Brazil. We've been able to become industry leaders there. Our company is formed and is led by Brazilians, and we care immensely about providing people here with affordable, high-quality CBD products that are legal and scientifically proven, said Hemp Meds co-CEO Caroline Hines. And we have showcased to citizens, even despite a global pandemic and a very poor currency exchange rate, that we've been able to increase our sales and make our products affordable for the struggling economy through adjusting our prices and offering payment plans. Now, before becoming co-CEO of Hemp Meds operation, Hines served as the vice president of Hemp Meds Brazil. She joined the company in 2014 and helped pass legislation to get the Brazilian government to subsidize CBD for several indications. And she was also able to establish 2 Hemp Meds Brazil offices and create a network of Brazilian doctors and medical professionals. You can learn more at hempmedsbr.com or at their Instagram.com/hempmedsbrazil. Medical Marijuana Incorporated, one of the few cannabis companies that's really focused on one of the other Latin American areas, which is Brazil. A lot of them have set up operations in Colombia. You're seeing a few of them focus on Peru now as well. And there's other Latin American countries that are starting to pop up as new cannabis hubs. Brazil, definitely one that has a great population, and especially for CBD and wellness products, there's a lot of opportunity there. There's a lot of potential sales. I do like that they focused on making this by Brazilians for Brazilians, and also working with the actual government and legislation to help with pricing and the overall economics of the situation. Obviously, that is an issue that a lot of these companies obviously are looking into, but not a lot have had great methods of dealing with, which is, it's great to say that there's a massive population in Latin America, but with the economic differences, you can't exactly start charging the same Americanized prices to that Latin American community and expecting the same sort of sales growth. So I do like that they've focused on ways to make this more relevant price-wise to what the actual local economy can deal with. And again, trying to make this affordable and available for the local economy, which is a big problem with any of those countries. Like I said, there's lots of different areas of legislation and as well as economic sort of uncertainty that you have to deal with. I do think that's why Colombia has become one of the main hubs, as it has a lot of those issues somewhat under wraps within their local government. But for all of those countries, you're going to see more and more of this. It is really nice to see, though, that almost every one of those Latin American countries, even throughout the pandemic, reported massive revenue, reported massive growth in sales. Again, medical marijuana had their best month ever in company history. So I would expect over the next few months, you might see more news articles like this where people are going to be reporting high grossing revenues. I think it's going to go through right into the winter, as we are expecting further closures. We've already seen that in the States as well as in Canada and different parts of the world. And I do expect that there's, again, once the weather changes and also there's not as much availability, there isn't going to be any of the event that a lot of people expected this year. And we saw cannabis sales were booming during people lockdown, and I do think that that's going to continue through probably well into next year. So you can expect to probably have a good idea of what it looks like when the industry is sort of booming within these sectors, especially in Latin America, and what the sort of issues are and how companies are dealing with it. Like I said, I think Medical Marijuana Incorporated is actually dealing quite well with their Brazilian operations, and it's obviously showing for them. And lastly, today, looking at Copper State Farms, LLC, who is a vertically integrated cannabis company based in Arizona, who announced its partnership with Last Prisoner Project, a nonprofit coalition dedicated to bringing restorative justice to the cannabis industry. So in an effort to help fight criminal injustice and reimagine drug policy, Copper State Farms has committed to raise $100,000 for the organization over the next 10 months. Running for 4 weeks starting on September 14th, Copper State Farms will donate $1 for every Copper State branded cartridge sold, and this is the first installment of several campaigns to unfold over the next 10-month of fundraising period. Last Prisoner Project is honored to have the support of Copper State Farms, and it's inspiring to see cannabis industry leaders stepping up to the plate to help support individuals who have been negatively impacted by the criminalization of cannabis, said Mary Bailey, the managing director of the Last Prisoner Project. Funding will go directly to the criminal justice reform initiatives, including prisoner release, clemency, and record clearing, vocational training, and mentorship programs for reentry, as well as educational scholarships for currently incarcerated constituents or children of the incarcerated. And according to a recent data assembled by the Last Prisoner Project, there are more arrests for cannabis possession each year than for all the violent crimes combined, with cannabis making up nearly 40% of all drug-related arrests. As a cannabis company, it's part of the ethos of our company to help build a more just system and support individuals impacted by the criminalization of cannabis with the resources to start again, stated Copper State Farms CEO Pankaj Talwar. And partnering with the Last Prisoner Project to help raise awareness of this issue to our community, and as well as to funding for the Last Prisoner Project, is something that we are proud to be a part of. So another company partnering with the Last Prisoner Project, there's actually been a few over the last year or so that have done similar types of small-scale projects with the Last Prisoner Project, either funding or doing a cross-promotional event, or having, similar to like this with Copper State Farms, a specifically branded product that every time sold either donates money to the Last Prisoner Project or at least raises awareness. And I do think it's nice to see that companies are doing this. I really just wish that all of them were. I think that it's something that every one of these cannabis companies has a stake in the game. They should be still even though it's legalized in many states, even though this is a mostly finished deal as far as cannabis legalization, even on a global scale. It seems a matter of if, not when now, or sorry, when, not if. And I really do think that for a lot of these companies, they need to be pushing as aggressively now as they were pre-legalization. They still need to have a little bit of tenacity towards this extreme imbalance that still exists today, whether you're in Canada or in the US or in other parts of the world. There's a huge percentage of people that have been basically wrongfully incarcerated for these non-violent drug offending crimes, and a lot of them are cannabis based. A lot of them as well are even based off of psychedelics and other such drugs. So I think that in general, there should be more. I would hope to see more companies doing similar partnerships with similar types of organizations like this. Last Prisoner Project isn't the only game in town. There are other projects that deal with similar issues and try to help in different ways. So I would like to see more companies do this. I don't think you're ever going to see any sort of mass sort of caring about this or any sort of huge project from any of the larger companies. Just because, again, a lot of them are focused on just daily operations and meeting financial goals, which is unfortunate, but you would hope that a lot of them would still be pushing this agenda or at least having it part of their awareness campaigns, whether it's in the retail stores or part of their brand and packaging. There's lots of ways for these companies to stay heavily involved in the sort of grassroots and underlying issues of the cannabis industry, whether it's again, legislation issues or how people have been incarcerated or getting these people basically reformed and back out into the industry of today, or allowing a lot of the people from the illicit market legal entry into the legal market. There's lots of different areas where there needs to be focused on what's going on and the injustices that have been committed. But again, I do think that you're only going to see sort of small potatoes action like this. It's nice. It does raise a lot of awareness. And I'd at least even be fine with that if, again, there was at least just more cross promotion and branding of these types of projects, so people going into the cannabis stores or people who are buying cannabis can be aware of ways they could help support and protect their sort of fellow citizens and other cannabis enthusiasts in the world. But maybe that's ideal thinking. That's all for today's podcast. And once again, today's podcast is sponsored by Cannabis Swiss Corporation, trading on the OTC as CSUI, a fully licensed cannabis cultivation and distribution company in Switzerland for recreational tobacco products and medical CBD oils. The company's products are laboratory tested to ensure that the end users have access to a standardized, safe, and consistent product. And Cannabis Swiss Corp currently sells via a distribution network of Swiss retailers and online shops under the retail brand Alpine Cannabis. That's all for today's podcast. Podcast is now a certified word trademark on the blockchain through Cognate Incorporated CM certification. InvestorIdeas.com podcasts are also available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and TuneIn. If you'd like to be a guest or sponsor of this podcast, please contact InvestorIdeas.com. Investor Ideas reminds all listeners to read our disclaimers and disclosures on the InvestorIdeas.com website, and this podcast is not an endorsement to buy products or services or securities. Investors are reminded that all investments involve risk and possible loss of investment. Investor Ideas does not condone the use of cannabis except where permissible by law. Our site does not possess, distribute, or sell cannabis products.